We're diving into a case today that is so unbelievably strange, it not only baffled doctors, but had to be formally investigated by the American Society for Psychical Research. This is a true story, and it really pushes the boundaries of everything we think is possible. So let's just start with the biggest question right up front. Is it possible for someone to suddenly start speaking a language they have never, ever been taught? I mean, it sounds completely impossible, right? But that's the exact mystery we're unpacking today. And trust me, it's a story that challenges our whole understanding of the human mind.
At the very heart of this puzzle are two women. On one hand, you have Uttara Hadar. She's a modern 20th century journalist living in Maharashtra. And on the other, you have Sharda Mukhopadhyay, the wife of a priest from way back in 19th century Bengal. These two were separated by more than 100 years and hundreds of miles. Their worlds should never, ever have collided, but somehow they did.
Okay, so let's get into it. The whole thing starts with Uttara, who by all accounts was a totally normal, well-educated woman, but her life was about to take a turn that was both terrifying and completely unexplainable.
Now, Uttara was a journalist, smart, held a master's degree. She comes back from a pretty standard 3-day work trip, gets home and has this absolutely crushing headache. So she goes to bed. Her family just assumed she was worn out from the trip. Little did they know, this was the beginning of an absolute nightmare.
And this is where things get really, really bizarre. In the middle of the night, her mom hears these strange noises. She goes to check and she finds Uttara, the same daughter who had been too sick to even move, is now fully dressed in an old-fashioned Bengali sari, talking to her own reflection. But here's the kicker. She was speaking fluent Bengali, a language she had absolutely no connection to. And when her family tried to talk to her, she insisted her name wasn't Uttara.
You can only imagine how terrified her family was. It was like the daughter they knew had just vanished. So they did what anyone would do. They tried everything. They went to traditional healers, they went to modern doctors. They were just desperate for any explanation for what was happening.
Finally, they take her to a doctor, and after running some tests and talking with this new persona, the doctor gives them a very rational, very scientific diagnosis: dual personality disorder. He figured it was probably brought on by extreme stress from her job, and that Uttara had basically created an imaginary character in her mind as a coping mechanism.
But see, there was one massive glaring hole in that diagnosis. Sure, a psychological disorder could maybe explain the new persona, but how on earth does it explain her speaking fluent 19th century Bengali? The technical term is xenoglossy, the ability to speak a language you've never learned. And that's the one detail where the whole medical explanation just completely falls apart.
And get this, the details this new personality gave were incredibly specific. Through an interpreter, she didn't just give a name. She gave her full name, Sharda Mukhopadhyay. She named her husband, her parents, and the exact village she was from more than 100 years ago. These weren't vague feelings. These were hard, verifiable facts.
This case got so weird and so compelling that it started attracting attention from all over the world. Eventually, the American Society for Psychical Research, an organization that literally investigates paranormal claims, decided they needed to look into it. They sent a whole team to India to conduct a formal investigation.
So these researchers, they travel all the way to Bengal and start digging through old historical records. And what they found is just stunning. They confirmed every single major detail. A woman named Sharda Mukhopadhyay actually did live in Shivpur about 150 years ago. Her husband really was a temple priest named Vishwanath. And the most chilling part of all, official records confirmed exactly how she died: a snakebite.
As they dug deeper, a really dark and tragic story came to light. Sharda's husband, Vishwanath, had convinced himself that she was the reason for all his problems, his bad luck, his financial issues. He went to a local tantric who told him to sacrifice Sharda. To make it look like an accident, he released a venomous snake in their home, and after she died from the bite, his cruelty didn't end. He refused to give her the proper final rites, which, according to their beliefs, meant her spirit was trapped.
So now the mystery of her death is solved. And you'd think, okay, here comes the scary part. The violent confrontation, the exorcism, right? But what happened next is what makes this case so unlike anything you've ever heard.
One day, the spirit of Sharda, speaking calmly through Uttara's body, went to Uttara's mother. She wasn't angry, she wasn't threatening, she just made a simple, polite request. She explained that her soul couldn't find peace and asked if they would please perform the final rite she was denied in her life.
If they did that, she promised, she would willingly leave their daughter's body for good.
And she was true to her word. The family arranged the whole ceremony. And as the final prayers were being said, a change came over Uttara. The presence of Sharda just left, peacefully. Just like that, Uttara was herself again, with zero memory of the weeks she'd spent living as a 19th century woman from Bengal.
So the case was closed, but what it left behind was this huge set of questions that we still can't answer. It's one of the most well-documented cases of its kind, and it really forces us to question the line between psychology, history, and the things we just can't explain.
And that's really what makes this story so incredible. You think of possession, and you think of movies, right? Violent, evil spirits that have to be forced out. But Sharada was the complete opposite. She was gentle. She never once harmed Uttara's body. She didn't need an exorcism. She just asked for help, and when she got it, she left. This wasn't some demon. It was just a lost soul looking for a little bit of peace.
And that leaves us with one final big question. The story of Sharada makes you wonder if our simple ideas about good and evil spirits are all wrong. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, reality is a whole lot more complex and a lot stranger than we give it credit for. And it really makes you think, if a documented case like this one is real, what else could be out there that we just don't understand yet?